So let's say I don't want to throw a party. I want to stay at home and I want to watch movies. What cool horror movies could I watch that are not necessarily extremely sexist?
There are many, many, many horror movies that have the last girl motif, which is a pretty empowering motif, even if it is a young kind of virginal girl who has to be a virgin in order to win the day. If you want a meta version of that, Cabin in the Woods is a really great kind of meta exploration of the horror movie genre. And I would really highly recommend that. But the Carrie movies, we just got finished doing an episode about the Carrie movies, but those would be great. If you want to go out to the movies, there's a new Halloween movie coming out.
Oh, really?
Yes. Jamie Lee Curtis is 40 years after the original Halloween movie came out. And Jamie Lee Curtis has said that, you know, she really thinks that this one, if like 40 years later, that the main character, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, has had 40 years to kind of deal with the trauma and is now really fighting back against Michael Myers. And that it's a very much like metoo kind of
that's really cool
message. So yeah, if you want to go out to the movies, October 19th is the day that it comes out in theaters, but you could watch it on Halloween. And there are a ton of movies online that have like powerful women in them for Halloween.
And just saying, we're not getting paid for advertising for the new Halloween movie. So this is just really like we just recommend it. It's not something. Oh
yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
Come on now.
We don't have money.
We don't get money.
We don't get paid for anything.
No, but it's supposed to be really great, and it has a really good kind of final confrontation between Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers, which is supposed to be really great. There also, if you want to watch online, there are lots of really great horror movies online right now. My husband and I actually have another podcast called Friday Night Fright Fest.
Yes. You did not tell us about this last episode, where it would have been so appropriate because we both forgot about it.
Yeah, I know. We totally forgot about it. Yeah. But we watch horror double features every Friday night. So, and we've just started kind of doing reviews of them. Andrew puts the two movies together. Oftentimes there's stuff that is available streaming. And we just watched a really great pairing of Ginger, it's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks, but Ginger Snaps, and which is really good. And we just talked about Ginger Snaps. But there are a lot of great horror movies out there, but then there's also a lot of really family-friendly movies, Halloween movies, that if you don't actually like horror movies, there are still some like quote-unquote scary movies with like monsters and stuff that are fun. They're just fun movies.
Yep. So we already talked about Ginger Snaps a bit last week, and you really recommended it as kind of a more feminist version of Carrie in a way, because it focuses very much on the topic of menstruation, but in a very empowering way.
Yeah.
One horror movie that I like and that I find very interesting from a feminist perspective is the horror film The Witch.
Oh, yeah. Which
came out, I think, 2 years ago, if I'm correct.
I think that's right.
And it's set in 1630, and it's a very, I am told, very historically accurate depiction of witch beliefs back then, right? But then, of course, it turns into a horror film where the witch is kind of terrorizing this family. But I think, and what I liked about it in the end is that the girl who is accused of sorcery, she kind of finds empowerment in it in the end. So, in a sense, and I don't want to tell you what happens because I don't want to spoil the fun, but I really loved it, and I thought that the end was really empowering, and it's a very interesting feminist film, I think. And then what I also like, and that is a Persian film. It's a Persian language vampire western called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Have you seen that? I heard
that's really good. I haven't seen it yet.
It is so, so good. It's basically a film about a young woman who is a vampire. And it's basically rape culture turned around. So she basically kills men in the film. So, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but it's also like, in a sense, a revenge fantasy, which can be very enjoyable to watch, especially in times like these.
Yes. And I would say the Scream movies are really good. They're funny, but really great.
And the Scream movies are also the most awesome parodies of horror films I've ever seen.
Yes. And The Craft, if you've never seen The Craft, it's from 1996, so it's older, but it's still really good. And have you seen the movie Final Girl?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's good. So it's Abigail Breslin. And she plays basically she's kind of a contract killer. And it's great. But it also plays with that final girl trope. But it also is kind of an anti-rape culture film as well.
Okay.
Ooh, and Hush. Have you seen Hush?
Yes, I have seen that.
Hush is really good because that's also another final girl movie, and that is great. And if you have Netflix, The Haunting of Hill House, which is based on a book by Shirley Jackson, that is out right now, and my husband and I are watching that, and it is fantastic.
Okay, so I have one more suggestion, one more recommendation, and in a sense, that film is kind of trashy, but then I also really love it.
That's fine.
It's called Honeymoon. And
my husband was telling me about this film.
There are two very different horror films that are both called Honeymoon. And I think they were also both released in 2014. So it's a bit confusing. But the one that I talk about is by Lee Janiak.
Okay.
I think Janiak is the name of and it's a female director. So.
Okay.
Which is always interesting because there are so few women who make, well-known films, right? Because usually those are left in the dark in a sense. And it's starring Rose Leslie and Harry Treadaway. And the film is really weird, but what it does in a very excellent way is it kind of, I would say, even satirizes the way that horror films tend to portray female bodies as monstrous.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't think that's an interpretation that many people would share, but I found it in parts really funny even, which is probably also because I deal a lot with like the depiction of women as monsters in films generally. And so I kind of see patterns really quickly in those films. And then if it's done so over the top as it is in this film, then I can't help but kind of also read it as a parody in a sense of those tropes. And the film is basically about a young couple that's just married. This is why it's called Honeymoon. And then they kind of, and it's a bit of a reference to Cabin in the Woods because they are in a cabin in the woods. And then, things get really weird. And again, that's all I'll say. But it's basically, so Bia, which is my name, but also the name of the main character, she goes missing, and then she's found naked and disoriented in the woods, and nobody really knows what happened. And then there's just strange things happening to her. Nobody knows if it's just her sleepwalking and going insane, or if she's maybe, I don't know, abducted by aliens, or if it's like ghosts, or it's just nobody really knows what's going on throughout the movie. It's just her behavior becomes weirder, distant and strange, and he doesn't know what's going on, and she becomes extremely scary for him, which is just, it's really interesting. And of course, the classic horror film trope of like an enclosed space in the woods, and they're locked in there basically together, which is,
no, that sounds great. There's a non-horror movie show on Netflix right now that if you are interested in feminism and you want to just do feminism on Halloween and screw the like scary stuff, then there's a documentary called Feminist, What Were They Thinking? And it's kind of revisiting a 1970s book of photographs of famous feminists and looking at culture then and now. So it kind of gives you a perspective on feminists from second wave feminism.
And then one thing that you can also do is listen to podcasts, right? If you don't want to watch films, you can listen to, of course, there are lots of feminist podcasts like ours, but we talked about this in our true crime episode. You can, for example, listen to My Favorite Murder, which is an excellent true crime podcast that is also very feminist.
So there are a lot of things to do to make for a safe Halloween, from buying your own drinks and making sure your phone is charged up all the way to, wearing a costume that's maybe comfortable, and punny.
Punny.
It's a pun. Do you know what a pun is?
I know what a pun is.
Okay. So it's like funny, but punny, like
punny. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Anyway. And it's and again, I'm just gonna say that again, it just sucks so much that we have to think about being safe all the time, right? But, but unfortunately, it's necessary to look out for each other.
Yes,
and
agree.
But it's also, I think, necessary to say that doesn't 100% prevent anything. So because one of the risks that this bears is that then people who something happens to, who actually get raped or who get assaulted, that those people are then told that it's their own fault because they didn't take care. But that's just something that we don't want to perpetuate.
The dirty secret about rape culture is that rape isn't about sex, and you can do everything right and you can do everything absolutely to protect yourself, and somebody comes and decides that they're going to take your power away from you and they're going to assault you. And it doesn't have to necessarily be rape. It can be sexual assault. It can be harassment. It can be all of those things, but it's all a way to take power away from you. And so if something happens on Halloween, don't be afraid to report it and reclaim your power. And there are some apps. If you feel like you're not going to have enough evidence to be able to prove it, there are some apps that you can install on your phone that will automatically start recording something if you tell it to, and you can record everything that's happening on your phone so that you have proof. I was at, just as a total aside, I was at Old Navy yesterday, which is a clothing store here in the United States, and they had these kind of wristlet clutch purses that had a built-in battery that would help you charge your phone while you're out and about. So you just charge it up ahead of time, and so if your phone battery gets low, the cables are all connected to it inside the phone, inside the bag. You just connect it, and you have an extra battery in your bag while you're out. Okay. So think about having an extra battery with you as well.
All right.
God, it sucks that we need to think about these things. It sucks that we
need to think about these things. It's really not, it shouldn't be our responsibility. But again, we cannot prevent things like that happening to us 100%. All we can do is look out for each other, and take care of ourselves. And since we're talking about taking care of ourselves, I think autumn, especially with the things that we talked about in the beginning of this episode happening, with us. And I know that many people listening to this are also sexual assault survivors, like many women are. I think it's when Halloween's around the corner, especially if it's something that's connected so much to also the issue of rape culture, I think it's really important to just take care of yourself. Self-care, as I think, very important in times like these. And autumn is a good time for that. So
yes. And if Halloween is too triggering for you, just honestly stay home and do some fun stuff that you want to do. Fuck Halloween.
You can also, you know what you can do? You can do the same thing that Liz did, which is dress up as a sexy cat lady and stay home with your cat.
Absolutely.
Which is what I do every